They say history is written by the victors. But what happens when the ones holding the pen have buried the truth so deep? You need a shovel made of courage to dig it out. If you've ever felt like justice is something you read about in textbooks but never see in headlines, if you've ever wondered why some crimes seem too big to prosecute, then ask yourself this. What would it take for you to believe that the system we trust has been turned against us? Picture a room, not full of lawmakers or lobbyists, but something older, heavier. It smells of dust and metal, like old paper and something unspoken. The lights hum. The seats are full. No one talks. It's July 25th, 2025. The hearing room at the Hart Senate office building doesn't feel like the birthplace of legislation today. It feels like a courtroom, a confession booth, a battlefield. And in the center stands Tulsi Gabbard. No frills, no fanfare, a navy suit and a silver pin on her lapel, that's all. There's a silence thick enough to cut before she speaks. She doesn't clear her throat. She doesn't look at her notes. She looks straight into the camera, into the eyes of a country half blinded by the very people who said they would protect it. Her voice doesn't shake. This is not about politics, she says. This is about betrayal. The words aren't shouted. They don't need to be. They carry weight because they're not trying to persuade. They're revealing. Tulsi doesn't tell a story as much as she opens a wound. The monitors behind her flicker on, timelines, wire transfers, transcripts. But more than that, stories. Real people. Real harm. Real silence. She walks us through the beginning, December 8th, 2016. The so-called Treason Summit. Documents declassified just weeks earlier show it wasn't just a briefing, it was a plan. Obama, Biden, Brennan, Comey. A closed-door meeting held not to protect the incoming president, but to prepare for war against him. And this is where the unease begins, not because of partisanship, but because something darker starts to take shape. What if the transition of power wasn't peaceful because it was never meant to be? Flynn steps forward next. His voice is low, rough, not rehearsed, but resolute. You can feel the toll in his tone, years of silence, of exile. He speaks not like a man seeking redemption, but a man who never lost his innocence in the first place. They built a coup, he says. They used every agency, and when I tried to stop it, they erased me. Behind them, the data rolls on. Surveillance maps, financial records, internal emails. But what makes the room freeze isn't just the details. It's what they mean. Imagine learning that the DOJ once used fake evidence to obtain secret warrants, that the CIA ran domestic surveillance on journalists, that the IRS targeted non-profits, not for fraud, but for thought. Now imagine knowing it's all true, and no one told you. Tulsi reaches for a folder labeled simply Operation Rhino Dawn. What she reads next is not an accusation. It's an indictment of history itself. An email from Hillary Clinton, March 15, 2013. It discusses drone strikes, arms transfers, witness elimination. Witness elimination. Tulsi doesn't shout. She doesn't dramatize, she just reads. And that calm is what makes it hurt more. We were told these emails were about yoga, about Chelsea's wedding. But one by one, the curtain is pulled back. Each slide is more devastating than the last. Saudi payments tied to missile deals. Uranium transfers signed off the same day as 8-figure deposits. Evidence of a shadow government operating from a mansion just 2 miles from the White House. It sounds like fiction. It sounds impossible. And yet it's right there. Date-stamped, verified, documented. A survivor from Benghazi testifies next. His voice cracks, not from nerves, but from memory. We begged for help, he says, and she said no. He's missing an arm. His face is marked with scars you can't fake. His story, ignored for years, now erupts into the light. The air changes when Tulsi brings up the next name, Paul Comer, the man who deleted Clinton's emails. Or so we thought. Because today he is in federal protection, and he's talking. She plays his confession. She called me directly, said get rid of them, bleach bit, hammer, acid. If I don't do it, my family pays. And just like that, the old story dies. Then comes a letter dated September 11th, 2012. From Hillary to Chelsea. It reveals she knew it was a terror attack within hours. But they lied. They said it was a YouTube video. They buried the dead with a narrative. Flynn can't stand silent any longer. He names the fallen. Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, Glenn Doherty. They didn't die in fog. They died in silence. And Tulsi says it plainly. You didn't just lie. You let them die. When she closes the first briefcase, she does it like sealing a casket. Not with finality, but with reverence. And she says it without blinking. Tomorrow we open the next one. And somewhere across the country, in living rooms, in cars, on the edges of beds where people sit with eyes wide open for the first time in years, a question begins to echo. If this is true, how much have we missed? How long has this been happening? And what will it take to stop it? The silence that followed the closing of the first briefcase wasn't peace. It was the kind of stillness that hangs over a battlefield the moment before the second wave arrives. America wasn't breathing easier. It was holding its breath. Tulsi Gabbard walked into the chamber the next morning with no change in expression, no shift in energy. The storm from the day before still followed her, not as chaos, but as a vow. What began as a probe was no longer a question of wrongdoing. It had become a dissection of betrayal. No headlines could soften it. No network could spin it. The evidence was no longer just paperwork and pixels. It was now pain. Living, breathing, undeniable. And today, Tulsi wasn't just revisiting emails or battlefield orders. She was following the money. The moment she opened Briefcase 2, the room dimmed, as if even the monitors needed a second to prepare. She pressed a button, and the screen behind her came alive with a symbol, the logo of the Clinton Foundation. Beneath it, in clean serif font, a slogan appeared, empowering people, changing lives. Tulsi looked up, her eyes locking on the cameras. Today, she said, her voice low and measured, we ask the question, empowering who, changing whose lives? She clicked again. What followed was not just a paper trail. It was a mosaic of intent. Handwritten ledgers, scanned and enlarged for all to see, filled the screen. They weren't suspicious notes or vague donations. They were explicit. One column read, country client. The other, deliverables plus amount paid. Tulsi walked through them slowly, each name like a blade against the illusion of innocence. Algeria, $500,000. Arms deal approval, silence on human rights abuses. Saudi Arabia, $25 million. Support for Yemeni airstrikes. Concealment of journalist assassinations. Ukraine, $10 million. Biden family protection. Delay on Russian sanctions. The numbers kept coming. Russia, China, Nigeria. Tulsi paused. This is not charity, she said. This is policy for sale. This is influence bought with blood. General Flynn took the stand again, this time not to testify, but to explain. He brought with him a stack of intelligence assessments spanning nearly a decade. He held one up. June 8, 2010, $234 million transferred from Chinese military accounts. That same day, the State Department approved a rare earth technology export license. That wasn't diplomacy. That was a deal. The room began to stir, not just with disbelief, but with recognition. This wasn't the first time Americans had felt something was off. But now, they were seeing the receipts. Tulsi turned back to the screen. A surveillance photo appeared. Chelsea Clinton, dressed in black, stepping off a private jet in Zurich. In her hand, a silver briefcase. The courier, Tulsi said. Chelsea Clinton acted as the liaison for high-risk financial transactions. She wasn't just aware, she was active. She clicked again. Another frame. Chelsea in Dubai, shaking hands with a man identified as a Saudi intelligence officer. Then another, showing her meeting a Russian SVR operative at a hotel bar. Yesterday morning, Tulsi announced, Chelsea Clinton was arrested at JFK Airport while attempting to flee to a non-extradition country. The chamber erupted. It wasn't the shock of the act. It was the reality of accountability, something that had felt extinct. Tulsi didn't pause. She has been indicted on charges of money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit treason. And then, for the first time, Hillary Clinton flinched. Her body, stoic the day before, trembled. Her hand gripped the edge of the table as if anchoring herself to a past slipping through her fingers. Tulsi looked at her, not with malice, but something colder, certainty. You didn't just sell out your country, she said. You sold out your daughter. A new witness took the stand. Herman Clay, former president of Deutsche Bank's private wealth division. He appeared live from a secure DOJ facility. Our audit confirms, he began, 17 accounts controlled by the Clinton family. Total balance, $284 billion. Sources, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Ukraine, and at least 40 more. He lifted documents, each wire transfer accompanied by policy actions. November 4, 2010, $847 million from Russian state banks. That same day, Secretary Clinton approved the Uranium One deal. The pattern was no longer arguable, it was mapped. And it wasn't over. Rebecca Callahan was next. Former accountant for the Clinton Foundation, 6 years inside the machine. She was pale, shaken, but resolved. I processed transactions labeled HIV aid and disaster relief, but those were fronts. The money went to campaign PACs, offshore trusts, and political lobbyists. Tulsi handed her a folder. Is this your signature on the internal ledger titled Tier 1 Donors and Return Favors? Yes, that was Hillary's language. The bigger the donation, the bigger the promise. A pause. She sold state visits, citizenship, military contracts, resource rights. We were told no donor leaves empty-handed. Tulsi stepped back. This is not a political scandal, she said. This is the infrastructure of corruption, a shadow market for American influence. She looked toward the judiciary panel. Mr. Chairman, I request the Clinton Foundation be designated a criminal organization under RICO. I further recommend all assets be frozen and warrants issued globally. The chairman nodded slowly as if the weight of the motion crushed oxygen. Applause erupted from behind the glass walls. Briefcase 2 closed. Tulsi didn't smile. She simply said, tomorrow we follow the trail to its architect. She looked directly into the lens, not the seller of access, but the builder of the machine. Barack Obama. And just like that, the silence returned. But this time it wasn't dread, it was momentum. The tide had turned, and America was watching. There was something different in the air that morning. Not the heat, not the tension. It was something else. A weight pressing in, the kind of pressure that only comes before history cracks open. The chamber was full again, but this time no one whispered. The people in the room knew. Today wasn't about policy. Today was about blood. Tulsi Gabbard stepped forward. No script, no teleprompter. She carried only Briefcase 3, and when she placed it on the table, the sound echoed like a judge's gavel. She didn't need to say much. The monitors did that for her. They came to life with a single image, the Clinton Foundation logo. Then a second line appeared beneath it, designated criminal enterprise. Tulsi began to speak, each word measured, weighted. Yesterday, we followed the money. Today, we traced the blood that paid for it. A slide appeared. The first name, Chris Stevens. A photograph, a date, a place, Benghazi. Then a second, Sean Smith. Then 2 more, Tyrone Woods, Glenn Doherty. This is not a war story, Tulsi said. This is the cost of silence. She played a recording. The voice of Mark Thompson, survivor of Benghazi. His testimony choked with rage and grief. Open quote, we had the assets, we had the men, we begged, we waited, and the order never came. Close quote, Tulsi paused, letting the words linger. He wasn't talking about enemy fire, she said. He was talking about betrayal. The monitors flicked to another document, a memo signed by Hillary Clinton, time-stamped 03:47 a.m. Open quote, under no circumstances are military assets to be deployed. Arms pipeline must remain hidden. Close quote, Tulsi looked across the chamber, not forgotten, not misunderstood, ordered. She pressed a button. The screen displayed a message, open quote, from H. Clinton to ChelseaClintonMail.com, time 11:47 p.m. September 11th, 2012. Push the video narrative. Election integrity depends on it. Close quote. The lie wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. But the day wasn't about Benghazi alone. Tulsi opened the folder labeled Tier 1 Fatalities. A list, Vince Foster, Seth Rich, James McDougal, Ron Brown, John Ash, each one tagged with status, completed. A document projected onto the monitors, damage control, final options. 47 names, 38 marked complete, 9 marked pending. Next came a black and white video, surveillance footage, a woman, clearly Hillary Clinton, standing behind the Rose law firm at night. Boxes, gasoline, a match. The files weren't leaked. They were burned. Tulsi said nothing at first, then softly, that's not deleted. That's destroyed. That's obstruction. The chamber gasped when the voice of Paul Comer came over the speakers. Open quote. She told me, hammer, bleach, acid, anything. If I don't do it, my family won't make it. Close quote. Next to speak was Elijah Carter, a former Secret Service agent. Open quote, I saw the Phase 2 briefings. They weren't security updates. They were execution orders, surveillance on journalists, disruption plans. Names, targets. One of them was Justice Scalia. Close quote. He stopped speaking. Tulsi turned the page. Another name, another face, Seth Rich. His autopsy on screen, execution style. No robbery, no theft. His work, server access. DNC. His contact, WikiLeaks. And then came a man whose name hadn't been spoken in years. Craig Livingstone, once the White House personnel director, now dying of cancer. His confession played over the speakers. Open quote. She told me to take 900 FBI background files, Republicans, judges, media, dirt, insurance. If anyone pushed back, they disappeared. Close quote. Then the screen cut to another. A man many had written off. John Podesta, his voice cracking. Open quote. The emails, the code words, the parties. It was real. It was all real. I tried to run from it. But the foundation wasn't just money. It was trafficking. Close quote. Tulsi didn't need to elaborate. The screen now read RICO obstruction file. Every name, every transaction, every fatality. Then came the final document of the day, a payment slip. From Iranian intelligence to the Clinton Trust, date January 14th, 2013, amount $17 million, purpose, asset elimination success, operation complete. Tulsi looked across the room. Her voice didn't rise, it dropped. You didn't just delete emails, you erased people. The chamber fell into dead silence. Then she opened a final envelope. Inside was a small card. Handwritten, a name, a code, a target. It matched a missing intelligence officer last seen in Ukraine. Her last known contact? A Clinton Foundation staffer. We're not just dealing with corruption, Tulsi said. We're dealing with murder. We're dealing with a system that protects itself with silence and shields its empire with fear. She closed Briefcase 3. Tomorrow we show you the architect, the one who turned agencies into weapons. Barack Obama. The crowd didn't move, because justice had stopped being a slogan and started becoming a reckoning. The storm that had gathered over the Capitol now had a name. Not Clinton, not even the Foundation. It was something bigger, deeper. A force that had turned oversight into obedience, accountability into illusion. And at the center of it, Tulsi Gabbard told the nation was not just a president, but a puppeteer, Barack Obama. The chamber was packed on the fourth morning. Not just with journalists or officials, but with Americans who had begun to feel the gravity of what was unfolding. What once sounded like conspiracy was now read from declassified memos. What once felt like rumor was now revealed in surveillance footage. Tulsi didn't raise her voice when she walked in. She didn't need to. The weight she carried was no longer personal. It was generational. Open quote. This morning, she began, we unmasked the architect. The man who did not transition from power, he repurposed it. Close quote. The monitors behind her lit up with a satellite image. A quiet neighborhood in Kalorama, Washington, D.C. Neatly trimmed hedges, brick colonial homes, perfectly unremarkable. Except one. Tulsi tapped the screen, it zoomed in. Open quote. This is not a residence, she said. It's a war room. Close quote. Briefcase 4 opened with a soft click. Open quote. Barack Obama never left Washington. He remained in the shadows. From this home, he ran encrypted lines to federal agencies, command channels, live feeds. He was not retired. He was commanding. Close quote. She clicked again. The next slide revealed thermal imaging scans. Beneath the Kalorama home, a fully operational intelligence suite, secure tunnels, signal amplification, a command console linked to DOJ, DHS, and FBI terminals. Flynn stepped forward. Open quote. They called it Olympus. Close quote. The screen displayed a timeline. December 8, 2016, the Treason Summit. Attendees Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Susan Rice, John Brennan, James Comey, Lisa Monaco. Objective, sabotage the incoming administration. The monitors changed to a memo, declassified. Marked, confidential, domestic operations only, open quote. Objective, delay, disrupt, discredit. Target, Donald J. Trump. Close quote. Tulsi read aloud, open quote. What they activated wasn't oversight. It was a coup, built with the tools of the very agencies meant to protect us. Another slide. FISA requests, dozens. Signed off with forged data. IRS probes against political donors. DOJ gag orders. DHS surveillance drones deployed over private residences. Open quote. Under Obama, Tulsi said, these agencies were turned into weapons. Close quote. Flynn stepped forward, holding a hard drive. Open quote. We recovered communications from Olympus. They weren't coordinating policy. They were coordinating takedowns. Close quote. He clicked a key. A voice played. Open quote. If Tulsi gets this in front of Congress, we're all going down. Close quote. Then Hillary, open quote. I can't vanish, Barack. They're watching everything. Close quote. Obama again, open quote. Then do what needs to be done like we did with Foster and Seth. This time, permanent silence. Close quote. The room froze. Tulsi held up a forensic waveform analysis from 3 independent labs. Verified. Open quote. This isn't fear-mongering, this is evidence. Close quote. She turned to the next screen. A financial web. Trusts linked to Michelle Obama's former literary agent. Transfers from foreign governments. Open quote. Since 2017, over $400 million has flowed into Obama-controlled entities. China, Qatar, UAE, Saudi Arabia, each coinciding with key domestic or foreign leverage points. Close quote. A new witness appeared on the monitor. Colonel Dean Wilkerson, Military Intelligence. Open quote. We confirm that Barack Obama is under active investigation for sedition, conspiracy, and unlawful use of government assets. Close quote. Tulsi nodded. Open quote. As of 9 a.m., Barack Obama's passport has been suspended. A federal search of his Kalorama compound is ongoing. Olympus is dismantled. The chain is broken. Close quote. Then came the final slide of the day. A photo of Obama at a private gala. Behind him, a document visible on a podium. Titled Domestic Influence Directive 61 Classified, until today. Tulsi read it. Open quote. Mandate, establish long-term ideological control of federal institutions through diversity, equity, inclusion pipelines, embedded legal triggers, and educational reprogramming. Close quote. She looked up. Open quote. You weren't leading a nation, you were conditioning one. Close quote. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Tulsi stepped back from the podium. Open quote. Tomorrow we reveal the silencing machine, the deaths, the threats, the ones who resisted. Close quote. She closed Briefcase 4 with finality. Open quote. Because treason doesn't end with emails, it ends with silence. Close quote. And across the country, a nation that had long stopped believing justice was real, leaned forward again. No opening statement, no introductions, no applause. The room didn't breathe, and neither did the nation. Tulsi Gabbard stood alone at the front of the chamber, her expression carved in stone. Before her was the final briefcase. 6 had been opened. This was the 7th. No one spoke, not even the press. The weight of what had come before demanded reverence. This one, she said finally, her voice low but fierce, is for them. She didn't clarify. She didn't need to. The monitors behind her turned black. Then one by one names began to appear, not in red, not in white, but in soft grey, as if etched into smoke. Each name followed by a mission date, a location, a fate. Michael Chen. Beijing, executed. Teresa Holtz, Ukraine, missing. Jonathan Ames, South China Sea, killed in action. Names. Dozens. 47 to be exact. Tulsi swallowed, then clicked the first slide. What you are about to see, she said, is not theory. It is not politics. It is the sale of human lives, American intelligence operatives, their missions, their coordinates, sold. The screen flashed a document header fired for Chinese eyes only. Prepared by H. Clinton gasps, murmurs. A senator dropped his pen. Tulsi clicked again. A spreadsheet, names and numbers, each matched to wire transfers. $50 million, she said. That was the price of 73 lives. Another click. Photos appeared, family members holding folded flags. A widow's trembling voice played over the chamber speakers. Open quote, my husband didn't die in a firefight. He was betrayed. Someone gave up his name, and I want to know why. Close quote. Tulsi let the silence answer. Then came the tape, the one sealed by 3 agencies. Played now for the first time, a foreign official's voice. Confirmed Chinese intelligence. Open quote. The Clinton file was accurate. All targets eliminated. Payment confirmed. Close quote. But next slide. A payment receipt. Zurich-based bank. Date stamped. Annotated. Confirmation of asset elimination. Operation complete. Tulsi turned to face the stunned gallery. This was not an intelligence error. This was espionage by a sitting Secretary of State. A new file opened. General Wei Feng of China's Ministry of Defense. Declassified testimony. He spoke via video. Open quote. Clinton provided nuclear submarine schematics, force movements, extraction lists, in exchange for influence and money. Close quote. Tulsi turned away from the screen. Her hands trembled slightly. This was not just about emails. This was betrayal at the highest level. Then one more document appeared, a memo recovered from the Clinton Foundation vault. Title, Tier 1 Intelligence Transfers signed, dated. The seal had been broken. What does it mean to lose a country? Tulsi asked. It means losing the lives meant to protect it. Now came the witness, Susan Chen. Widow of Michael Chen, CIA field agent executed in Beijing. Open quote. I want to know why my husband's face ended up on a Chinese kill list. I want to know why the country he died for couldn't protect him. Close quote. Tulsi handed her the last folder. Susan opened it, eyes scanning the top sheet. Her breath caught, her knees buckled. But she stood. Open quote, it was her, she whispered. She signed off. Close quote. Then came the final sequence. Names of all 47 betrayed agents flashed on screen, then faded. A news vital. Charges filed: H. Clinton, espionage, treason. 47 counts of first-degree murder. And below it, charges filed: B. Obama, conspiracy to commit treason, sedition, obstruction of justice. Then the screen split. Live footage. Outside Clinton's estate, black SUVs pulled in. Agents emerged at Obama's Kalorama compound. The same. No more theories, no more questions, only action. Tulsi turned back to the room. Open quote, we told you the truth. You watched it unfold. Now we leave it to justice. Close quote. She reached down, closed the final briefcase and locked it. Open quote, this chapter ends today not with vengeance, not with celebration, but with truth. Close quote. As she left the chamber, no one clapped. No one cheered. They stood in silence, the kind you feel at a funeral, or the birth of something new. The deep state had been exposed, and America, whatever came next, would never again claim it didn't know. Justice, at long last, had been named.